Good afternoon, this is Lauren Sonnenberg, and welcome to this week's edition of Mind Body Talk on chronic pain. So today, since people have been wanting to know, we're going to talk about how to do basic EFT tapping for chronic pain. Now, you'll also see in the comment or the descriptor above the video that this is not the entirety of how to do tapping on chronic pain. So I don't want to give you that impression, because if you do today's practice, and you can tap along while we're talking about it and I'm showing you how to do it, of course. However, if you walk away from this thinking that this is the only way to do it and you're not getting great results by just doing this very, very basic EFT tapping, I just want you to know you have to learn other approaches besides this very basic one. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full extent and the full power of the EFT. So yeah, just don't walk away thinking that this is the be-all end-all. And if it doesn't get you great results after tapping for a couple of minutes here with me, then you get frustrated with it. There's so much more to it than this, but I figure a really good way, since I don't give people tapping scripts, global general tapping scripts, they don't work. But what I can do today is create a detailed, personalized script with you for starting on tapping. We're just real surface style tapping today. We're not getting into the deep nitty gritty. One of the reasons why it takes a lot of time and training to do that, but I also don't want to hit any real big emotional trigger points with somebody who I don't even know is there, and I can't help you since I don't know what's going on. So I want to keep it surface, keep it general, and just get your feet wet with EFT. If you've never heard of it before, or maybe you know a little bit about it and didn't use it for chronic pain or for pain, today we'll just be introducing you to it. So thanks for joining me here. And so if you don't know what EFT is, it is the emotional freedom techniques, also known as tapping. Now, you may have heard a couple of other terms for EFT. One term you may have heard is emotional acupressure. So we are using acupressure points, and we're working on emotions associated with chronic pain. We could be talking about depression. We could be talking about anxiety. We can be talking about trauma from any given event. EFT is used in a broad range of applications. So it's very user-friendly, and it works really well. It's very effective when it's used correctly, which means when we're using it specifically. So if we're just tapping on something, and I'm just going to throw a phrase out there, if you've never used EFT before, you're not going to know what I'm talking about yet. But if we start on the phrase, even though I have this chronic pain, I deeply and completely accept myself, that's not going to work. Not going to work. I mean, if it does, it's kind of a miracle, but it's mostly not going to work. So it might work for a second. We need to get a lot more specific than that. And today we're actually not even going to get into tapping on the emotional parts. We're just going to show you the sequence and get you in the mode and focused in on the pain in a way that you might not have been focused in on it before. So we are tapping at these various acupressure points, and what's happening when we're doing that is the cortisol level of the body, the cortisol levels are going down, and so we're pairing that calmer reaction with something that we're not so feeling good about. Generally, people aren't in love with their chronic pain for obvious reasons. And if we're talking about a traumatic event, obviously there's trauma and tension there. So when we pair it with something that's calming and literally chemically is reducing the cortisol levels in our body, we start to get a nice response. And this is where you might have heard of acupressure desensitization. That's another term for what we're doing here. So tapping on these acupressure points, many of the same points that they use with acupuncture. Of course, acupuncture uses the whole body, all the points on the body. With EFT, we're using around 8 points. So it's a lot easier to learn. You don't have to get an acupuncture degree. So let's begin with, I'm going to show you the tapping points. And then after I show you the basic tapping points, I'm going to help you create your own set of descriptors and a phrase that you're going to pair the tapping points with, and then I'm going to walk us through it together. Okay, so, and I see Melissa's there. Hi, Melissa. I can't see if anybody else is watching, but I can see Melissa. So thanks for joining me. And so the tapping point. So the very first point is the side of the hand here. And we have, we take 4 fingers of one hand and we tap between the wrist point and the base. Oh, and there's Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Melissa. And we have between the wrist point and the base of the pinky, and we take 4 fingers, and we could be doing that on the other hand. It doesn't matter which one, but I generally start off like this. So we're using a moderate tapping pressure. Okay. And we are tapping here, and we're going to say the full phrase about 3 times through. We'll get to that point, okay? So that's one of the points we use. That's where we set up. And the top of the head, we use 3 or 4 fingers down the center of the line, center top line of the head. Okay, that'll be the next point. And I'm going to walk you through these, so you don't even have to write them down. You can always watch the video after as well. So the next point is the beginning of the eyebrows. So we are using 2 fingers of each hand, and right here at the bridge of the nose, right where the eyebrows begin, we're just tapping there again, a moderate tapping pressure. Okay. And then the side of the eye, oh, got the hair in the way, side of the eye on the eye socket coming out straight from the corners of the eye there. Okay, so, and then underneath, same 2 fingers tapping under each eye on the cheekbone, under the nose, that in the little divot there, the chin in the little divot right there, okay? And then the collarbone points. Now, people do this differently, but you take 4 or 5 fingers of each hand and tapping on about an inch down from that little divot in your neck, about an inch down and an inch out. But we also can go in a circular motion here, so we're covering a number of points, okay? Now, some people will just take like their fist and just go ding, 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 and just tap there. That's acceptable too. Okay, and then for the last point, we're taking the flat of the hand. This one, we're using the flat of the hand, and we're going under either arm. It doesn't matter which one, whatever's comfortable for you. And you don't have to do both. Some people really like to do both, but you don't have to. So, and you're not up in the armpit. You're about 4 inches below. For ladies, it would be along the bra strap line. So just the flat of the hand, and you're just tapping with a moderate tapping pressure. So that's literally all of the points that we use for EFT, for a very basic EFT sequence. Now, there are other versions of it, but today we're just going to stay simple. Literally, I use that sequence probably 98% of the time when I'm doing EFT with clients, because we don't normally need to throw in, there's a gamut technique, and we might have to once in a while, but rarely. So we're just going to stick with the simple points here today. So we'll walk you through all of that in a little bit, but I want you to, if you have any pain going on, just go ahead and, I know you may or may not have paper. If you have paper, great. If not, that's okay. I think you'll be able to remember what we're creating here. So if you have pain, and feel free to share that. If you've done EFT before, feel free to share that in the comments, or if you have any pain that you want to disclose, feel free to put that in the comments if it applies to you. So let's first look and see. If there is no color for your pain, that's fine, as it's presenting right now. If there is a color, a lot of times we hear red or black or white. There are other colors that come up, or a combination of colors. So if there's a color, if we were doing this very basic tapping technique, I would throw the color into the words we're going to use. If there's not, don't worry about it. And then for another descriptor, is it hot or cold, or any version along those lines that kind of speak to the warmth of it. Okay, because there is a hot pain and a cold pain, and people describe it lots of different ways. And again, we're talking about how it is right now, not necessarily how it was this morning or how it was last night, but really how it is right now. Then we're going to talk about, is this a dull or a sharp pain? Now, if some of these apply, great. If not, don't worry about including them in the descriptor set here. But we're just trying to get a really good set of descriptive words together. And then, is it radiating, shooting, stabbing, anything along those lines? You can use other words, but those are just a couple to give you an idea that you can work with. Okay. And then the last one I'm going to focus on with you today in terms of including it or not here would be, is it a constant pain the way it's presenting right now, or is it intermittent, like acting up every minute or so? I mean, I know we're really talking about right now, but in the last, 10 minutes or so, has it been constant or intermittent? Okay. So here's how we would put that together. And plugging it into the even though phrase with EFT, comma, we're going to use today, I'm working on accepting myself, because I don't know where people are at with their pain. So we want to use kind of an all-inclusive terminology. Some people might be, oh yeah, I accept myself 100% fully and everything's hunky-dory. And if you've never used EFT before, you're probably a little bit confused even about that statement. But after you do it a couple of times, you'll get the hang of it. So feel free, if you have questions, feel free to put them into the comments below, and I'll try to address them before we finish up today. So for example, I'm just going to make something up here. So it would be something like this. Even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back. Now, if it's right or left side, you can include that as well too. I'll just assume this made up pain that I'm talking about right now is in the center of my low back. Okay. And if you refer to it with more anatomical terms, like in my lumbar region, if that's how you would normally refer to it, great. If you wouldn't normally talk about it with those words, don't use it. Use whatever words really ring true for you right now, because you're not, you're just trying to activate what's most real for you right now, not trying to explain it to somebody, and certainly not technically. But if you do normally, then do it that way. So I'm going to help you create the phrase. So if you have now your descriptors, imagine the phrase going something like this. Even though I have this, plug in your color, red, black, white, whatever color the pain is, if you have a color for it, hot or cold. So even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, I'm working on accepting myself anyway. Okay? So that's the phrase we're going to use, except I'll say that, but when you're tapping along on your side, and feel free to say it out loud, obviously, if you're in a place where you feel comfortable to do so. If not, you can just pretend to say the words in your head, and that's okay. So we'll tap along together, unless anybody has any questions so far. Anybody have any questions? Hi, Jennifer. Good to see you. Any questions so far? If not, we're good. We're just going to dive right in here. Okay. So we're going to start at the point that I showed you at the side of the hand, 4 fingers from the one hand, tapping on the other, and take a deep breath. I always like to do deep breaths with tapping. Well, in general, they're good for you, but okay. So even though I have this, and again, you're plugging in your words, or if you don't have words to plug in, just tap along with these words. Even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, or wherever yours is, I'm working on accepting myself anyway. And we'll say it again 2 more times. Even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, I'm working on accepting myself anyway. And the one thing I forgot to have you do is to write down 0 to 10 how intense this is prior to tapping. So if it's like a 10, then write down a 10. If it's like an 8 intensity, like 10 being the most, so just if you can think back to what it was before we go through the whole tapping sequence, you can compare to it, okay? So even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, I'm working on accepting myself anyway, okay? Now, top of the head. Here we're not actually going to use the full phrase. I'll break it into smaller phrases. So, this red, hot pain, okay? Beginning of the eyebrows, this sharp pain. Side of the eye, this radiating pain. Under the eye, this constant pain in my low back. Or we can do the full phrase, even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back. Go to the next spot. I'm working on accepting myself anyway. Okay, we'll do the full phrase here. Okay, even though I have this red, hot, that might be really loud with the microphone, I apologize. I just realized I'm tapping right where the microphone is. So I'm just going to pretend to tap there so you don't hear that. Even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, I'm working on accepting myself anyway. And then under the arm, 4 inches below the armpit, even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, I'm working on accepting myself anyway. So then what I would have you do is take a deep breath. Now, that was only one round of tapping, okay? And what you can have happen is 3 different things. Anytime we're tapping on anything, whatever you're tapping on can go up in intensity, it can go down in intensity, or it can stay the same. Now, I'll describe what's happening with each one, and then we'll go back in and do another round or 2 of tapping. So assess where your number was. You know what it was beforehand, and see where it is now. Now, again, as I preface today's whole discussion, this is pretty surface EFT still. So you could feel some movement. I mean, we're not just tapping on the word pain. We got pretty specific there, but yet we're not really getting deep into emotions here. We didn't use an emotional word at all, except I accept myself. Okay. So, and you could argue, there's some emotion in that, but that's a lot of cognitive there. So, where is it? If it stayed the same, it means we just didn't get specific enough, or we didn't do it long enough yet. Okay. And that's probably the case for most of you if you're dealing with an active pain. Again, 1 round, but everybody responds a little differently depending upon what the body's ready to release. And if it went up, this is also surprisingly a good thing. And that is because you literally then have tapped into the pain. When we say, I should also add, when we say tapping on the pain, as you have gathered thus far in today's example, we're not literally tapping where the pain is located. I mean, if by chance we did, okay, but we're not tapping, like I'm not tapping on my low back, for example, okay? We're tapping on the pain, meaning the topic of the pain. So there's that. And if you really got into something and the mind body is like, oh, I'm ready to release this, you might feel an intensity of the pain. So in that case, just keep tapping. Even if you don't use the words, just keep tapping through the points. It would be helpful to use the words, but just keep tapping. And if we're not likely necessarily to really get an emotional, really high emotional response right now. But if you do, like let's say a person started crying because they're releasing, keep tapping. Just let that all out and just keep tapping. That's a really good thing. Yawning, feeling tired, sometimes even feeling dizzy, believe it or not, very good things. And headaches. These are all healing signs when we start to do this EFT. And it's a really good sign. So now if it goes down, it means you've already gotten through that initial peak, and it doesn't always go up, but if it's going down, it means we just keep tapping with it, you know. We're onto something, and it's not like we had that surge at first where we have to really just deal with that intense surge. We just go right down. It's just ready to release. Now, if you were tapping on this, you might hit a roadblock. You might, like, let's say you might stop at 4 out of 10 pain. I'm just throwing that number out there. And that would mean that there's the next level of the onion that we're approaching. And then we would need to use some inquiry. I would ask questions specific. I would just ask the person something even as basic as, if we were just talking about the just pain descriptors, like, did anything change? Like, maybe the color was red and now it's orange, or maybe it was in your low back before, but now it shifted up and to the right. Maybe it was like dull and now it's sharper. So these changes we can integrate into the next round of tapping. If it stayed the same, just stick with the same words. Okay? So we'll go through. Let's do another round of tapping. Unless anybody has questions, I just want you to feel free to ask them. Okay? So side of the hand. And I'll use my phraseology again, and you use yours, okay? So even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, I'm working on accepting myself anyway. And even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, I'm working on accepting myself anyway. And I think I didn't do it 3 times yet. We'll go another time, if maybe I did. Even though I have this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, I'm working on accepting myself anyway. Now, top of the head. This red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back. Beginning of the eyebrows, and I'm working on accepting myself anyway. Side of the eye, this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back. Under the eye, I'm working on accepting myself anyway. Under the nose, this red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back. Chin, and I'm working on accepting myself anyway. Collarbone points, I'll pretend to tap them so I don't make the mic get all loud. This red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, and then under the arm. This red, hot, sharp, radiating, constant pain in my low back, and we'll finish it, and I'm working on accepting myself anyway. Okay, take a deep breath. And as you can see, I varied it up a little bit. You can use any parts of the phrase as you tap through the points. So see how you do with this. See how you do with this. Definitely, if you have questions regarding this, by all means, ask them. These are great questions. If you have them, you can bring them into my free chronic pain mind body empowerment group. Definitely can ask the questions there. And if anybody joined in a little later, again, this is not the entirety of how to do EFT for chronic pain. Like, if you walk away from today and you're like, oh, that didn't do anything, that's because we're just totally scratching the surface. There's so much more work to do. And if you caught one of my other videos, and if you didn't see it on Facebook on this channel, I mean, you can scroll down and look, or you can go onto my YouTube, LifeCore Wellness, and you can see it there too. And we talked about the 6 areas to tap on with EFT. And so it shows you the various components or aspects of chronic pain, and it's diverse. It's a broad terrain to cover. So this is just one little piece of it all. And like I said, we really didn't even get into the emotional piece yet. So, if you have questions, let me know. And if not, I would say, hey, try to do a couple more rounds of tapping on this at home and see how you go. Don't forget to check that intensity level. We call it the SUDS level, which is subjective units of distress distress scale, subjective units of distress scale, SUDS for short. So 10 being like the most pain, 0 being none at all, and just see where it's at. And if it's changed at all, the quality of the pain, quality, it's a very interesting term, any of the descriptors about it, if any of that has changed, definitely integrate that into your phrase, into your wording, and tap on that and see how that goes for you. And again, take it to the next level, join the group, learn more about EFT and about different ways to address chronic pain from a mind-body perspective. So thanks again for watching today, and I'm really glad you were here, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week on Mind Body Talk on chronic pain. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.